Afternoon, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom here in Southeast Ohio. We just finished up an intermediate survival class this morning, broke down our camps out in the woods and brought the students back in. Now I'm rusted up, showered up, cleaned up, and ready to shoot the Sunday afternoon video. So what I thought I'd do today is I want to kind of step back into that navigational series of videos for a minute. And those aren't the most popular videos because they're skills, and skills videos don't seem to get the views that other type videos get, and that's okay. I do this for the educational value. So I put out a lot of educational videos for that reason, for future people to look at if they're looking for information that are skills based or skills related. So let's talk about what I would consider the top 5 tools you need for navigation, or tools that will enhance your navigation. And we're going to add one to the bottom, number 6. That is a recently discovered tool of mine that works really, really well for certain things in navigation. We're not going to delve too deep into each individual topic because I do have some videos on each of these topics within my navigational playlist, okay? So you can go to that playlist. I'll try to put a link to it in the description box of this video, and there's probably 40 or 50 navigational type videos in that series if navigation is of interest to you. It's one of my favorite subjects. It's what we specialize in here at the Pathfinder School. Pathfinding is basically navigating, and that's the specialty of this school. So I dwell on it quite a bit. Now, we've talked about, and I've shot videos on compasses. So I've got compass as your number 1 tool on the list. And again, this is tools that are completely off grid, completely without power, no external source necessary other than the fact that you have it with you. It doesn't have to have anything else except you operating it and your brain power, okay? The compasses that we use out here at the Pathfinder School are all, for the most part, until we get to more of an advanced navigation or navigation intensive or an advanced class, are just a base plate style compass with a mirror and a bezel ring that you can adjust the declination within that compass. This one happens to be a Brunton True Arc. Silva, Sunto, all good brands. And just make sure that whatever brand compass you buy a good quality compass that has a sighting mirror, a movable bezel ring, you know, that you can adjust the declination in and things like that so that it's very user-friendly for you when you get ready to utilize that compass, all right? This is probably one of the places I would tell most people, spend the money. Don't skimp on a compass. Spend the money, buy a good one, all right? This one happens to have a set of pace beads attached to it, a pace lanyard, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. The next thing I would tell you is maps, okay? Maps of the area that you're operating in and adjacent areas are very, very important. Even if you are traveling by motor vehicle, but you may end up having to leave that vehicle, things like gazetteer maps that are topographic style maps in pages in a book. You can always rip a page out of that book if you need to, if you're leaving your vehicle. But a topo map of some kind of the area that you're operating in. A topographic map is a very important piece of your equipment because not only will it show you the easiest route if you understand how to read the terrain on the map, it will also show you danger areas to avoid on the map as you're trying to navigate. And it will also show you some features like roads, houses, buildings, man-made objects that you might not realize are close to the vicinity, but they're on the map and you can navigate to them for help if you need to. So a topographic map and a good knowledge of how to read it is very important. Now, we try to make everything mesh well here at the Pathfinder School. So I use 1 to 10,000 maps because they're base 10. The UTM grid locator we use here at the Pathfinder School is base 10 because it's 1 centimeter to 100 meters, 10 centimeters to a kilometer. I like base 10 because it's easy to work with and it's easy to teach. And at that point, all you need is a 10 centimeter ruler and you can improvise a protractor if you need to, and almost all write and rate notebooks have them on them. So you don't even have to carry the protractor necessarily at that point to utilize that map for UTM grid. And that is one of the next things that we're going to talk about down here is your protractor or your UTM grid locator. The next thing that we have on here is a lat long ruler, okay? People do not understand in the survival community, I'm just going to say it out, in the survival community, people do not understand how important it is to be able to figure your lat long on a map, your location and latitude, longitude on a map. If you look at 90 98% of all devices that spit out any kind of a coordinate for location, it always comes out in lat long. Some things default to lat long, and you can change them to MGRS, so you can put MGRS grid coordinates in them, but many of them are defaulted there and you cannot change them. So if you don't understand how to plot lat long on a device or give that information to someone else if you're communicating, sometimes you're going to have a problem. A lat long ruler is a very important piece of the puzzle, okay? And understanding how to use it. The next one is your pace beads. One of the most basic navigation devices we talk about here at the school are a set of pace beads, and all it really is a vertical abacus, okay? It's a fairly simple system, but it helps you keep track of where you are. It helps you with dead reckoning. If you can look at a map and you have an exact distance in meters, and you can convert that to paces, which we'll talk about, like I said, in a minute, then you can dead reckon and understand when you should be there, how long it should take to get there. And by looking at the map, you can tell the terrain you have to go through to get from point A to point B. And all of those things are important when you're navigating, okay? You can do the same thing with lat long. You can plot one lat long, another lat long, and go between them with the map using the same measurement system. You're just plotting the points on the map with a different system than UTM grid using latitude, longitude, okay? So it's important to understand that as well. Then the last one I've got on here is a slide rule, okay? And I've got a bigger one here for discussion today. I carry a fairly small one in my kit. It's actually about the same size as this lat long ruler is. So it's about, I don't know, it's a little over 10 centimeters because this is 10 centimeters here. So it's probably 15 centimeters long, but it's very lightweight, doesn't weigh anything, doesn't take up any room because it's flat, and I can just throw it in my kit. Like I said, I've got a bigger one today, just so you can see it better on camera as we discuss these tools. The top 5 plus one I would add to make your navigation more robust and make it easier on you and make it more reliable for you, even if you don't have power in a device. All right, so the first thing we'll talk about is compasses. I won't go too deep into this because we spoke to compasses in lots of videos, all right? But you want to begin with, a base plate compass that has a sighting mirror, a movable bezel ring, and you can adjust the declination within the compass to match your map. So you're going from magnetic azimuth to grid azimuth. Those are the most important aspects of this for direct navigation use, okay? All right, so the map itself. Again, scale of the map is up to you. This is a 1 to 10,000 map. If your map is divisible by 100, 1 to 25,000, 1 to 50,000, 1 to 10,000, 1 to 100,000, then you have a metric map. If your map is on a scale like 1 to 24,000, you have an inch map, all right, or a miles map. That's important to understand. Either one can be used on either map. However, most things on the map, other than, and this is the weird thing about it, this is a 1 to 10,000 scale map, but the contour interval is in feet and not meters, okay? Almost all contour intervals are in feet on every map I've ever seen, all right? Even if the map is set up in a scale, that's better used with meters, like 1 to 10,000, okay? So with that said, just remember that, all right? I like to use metric, again, because it's base 10, all right? You want to make sure that the map covers the entire area that you are going to operate in or that you may be walking in. You want to make sure that it is a good waterproof map like the ones made by mytopo.com. You can go right to their website at mytopo.com and create your own map for your own area and have it printed out on waterproof paper. And this is exactly what we use at the Pathfinder School. At every class that we use maps are MyTopo maps, and they work really, really, really well, okay? So make sure that you've got a map of a scale that you understand how to use. That's got all the terrain features on it you need. You can customize these maps if you want to not only show the MGRS grid, but also they will show lat-long reticulate lines all the way across the map as well. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's bad, because sometimes those lines can be fairly close together and they're contrasting colors of blue and black most of the time, but they can still throw you off when you get in a hurry. So I like to try to stay with one or the other on a map if I can, If I'm operating inland most of the time, I will use Mgrs. If I've got a map that's got water on it, I'm going to be in the water, near the water, then I'll use lat long, okay? But again, most devices are going to default to lat long anyway. So understanding how to use these reticulates and a ruler to plot lat long is important, okay? That's pretty much enough said on maps. Again, I've got lots of subject matter out there on how to read maps, how to use maps, all that kind of stuff, all right? So, our next tool is the protractor, okay? This one happens to be the Pathfinder protractor. It has a scale on it from 0 to 10, 0 to 10 in centimeters. It has a 1 to 24,000 scale on this side here, in case you have a different map. And it has a 360-degree protractor here. And I've just put a string through it, a piece of bank line through it, so that I can take readings off the map to get bearings, all right? So the way this is used in simple terms is you are going to take your map and figure out what grid square or 4-digit grid square you're going to be in trying to find your number, all right? And so you have numbers that are called northing numbers, which are the ones that run from south to north. So you've got 37, 38, 39, and they progressively go up as you're northing. And then you have easting numbers, which progressively go up when you go east, 78, 79, 80, okay? And your grid square is going to be the corner of that. So this would be the grid square 78, 37. We always read right and up, all right? So if we read right, it's 78, up, it's 37. And this grid square here that starts right in this corner is going to be the grid square we're looking at. It's a very simple methodology. You just have to get used to it. And all you do is put this dot on the corner of that grid square and you slide, right? So remember, I said right and up. So if your grid coordinate was 7850 to give you an 8-digit grid, then you would slide over 5 centimeters exactly, which would be 50. Now you've got your easting number. And if your northing number was 50, then you would slide this up, keeping the 5 on that line and moving this 5 to this line inside the grid square. And that should give you the exact center of a 1,000 meter grid square, because you're 500 east, 500 north in that grid square, which means you're in the center of a 1,000 meter grid square. The other reason I like the metric so well, it's very, very simple to teach, very simple to understand. But a protractor will allow you to plot those points very, very easily. Now, can you use a ruler? You absolutely can. A Write in the Rain notebook that has a 10 centimeter ruler on it can be done the same way. Just slide it over and then turn it sideways and go up. You can do the same thing with just a notebook. You don't have to carry this, but this is much more convenient if you've got a place to carry some flat piece of plastic that doesn't weigh anything. It's much more convenient. All right, lat long. Lat long is a little bit more difficult, all right? What you have to figure out is you have to figure out how many seconds you have between reticulates on your map. And you can see that this one goes from 39, 10, 15 to 39, 10, 30. That means I have 15 seconds between reticulates. So on this lat long ruler, which has several different scales on it, I want the scale that has 15 seconds on it. This one goes in seconds, in 1 second intervals out to 30. So this is my 15-second interval ruler right here. This is the one I would use. Now again, you have easting and you have northing for the most part, which is called latitude, longitude. All right, your longitudinal numbers are your easting numbers. Your latitude is your northing numbers, right? Your latitude is your northing. Your longitude is easting toward Greenwich Mean Time. And again, I don't want to get too complicated with this because we've talked about it other times, okay? But you would take your reticulates and you would have to draw them over probably with a pencil of some kind. And you can see there's a pencil line drawn on this one particularly that shows this particular northing and easting lines right here where they intersect. So it's showing 82, 24, 15 and 39, 10, 30 is right here on the map where those two intersect. And then you use this northing and easting to calculate, just like you do with your UTM grid locator or your Mgrs grid locator, where you're at within that reticulate box, okay? And again, I've got videos on that, so I'm not gonna get too in-depth in that. But understand how to use this, because sometimes you may need it for rescue. If you've got someone who cannot plot UTM grid or doesn't understand how to do it, and they can only take a lat long, or you've sent someone a lat long, or you're sending something over a device that sends a lat long, it's important to understand how to use that, okay? The pace lanyard or pace counter is next. This is our pace lanyard that we sell on our website. It's the one I use most of the time. You see most of the paint's chipped off this bad boy. And I transfer it from the compass lanyard to my pocket clip, whatever it is, where there's a hole or a shirt button in my pocket, something like that. That's where I'm gonna clip this to when I'm navigating, okay? So it's in front of me. It's plain and simple and easy to get to. I also carry one very similar on my knife most of the time in my pocket, okay? When I don't have my full compass kit with me. But the way this is set up, like I said, you have 9 beads and 4 beads, and it is basically a vertical abacus to count distance. Again, base 10, everything's based on 100 meters. So you need to understand what your pace count is for 100 meters with your gear on, your average pace count, uphill, downhill, side hill, rough terrain, smooth terrain, flat ground, all that stuff. Average it out to get yourself an average pace count, and then figure out what that average pace count is. And that's what you have to count to with this. And a pace is not this. A pace is this, all right? So if I start off on this foot, when this foot lands again, that's a full pace, all right? That's a stride, that's a pace, okay? So we're going one full pace. My pace count happens to be 62. So if I start walking on a line or an azimuth, I'm gonna start counting. And as I count to 62, I'm gonna drop a bead and start over. Now I've walked 100 meters. And so on until I've walked 900 and counted to 62 9 times. Then I'm going to drop one bead here and raise these back up. And now I've walked 1 kilometer and I'm starting over again. So this would be 1 kilometer and 300 meters. So this will track 5 kilometers of travel, okay? It's a pretty simple device, pretty easy to use, okay? Now, the last one I have on the list is a slide rule. And this is a new device that I've been using quite a bit for navigation. And what I really like about this, again, is the whole off-grid, no batteries required concept of things, that I can understand a couple very important pieces of information quickly. These pace speeds are tracking the meters you walk by paces in 100-meter increments, nothing in between at all, okay? So if I walk, let's say I've walked 2 kilometers and 41 paces. Well, until I get to 62, I'm not dropping this. So I've walked 2 kilometers and 41 paces. That's not a measurement. That's 2 kilometers and 40 times 1.6. Okay, that's what that really is. So understanding that and calculating that quickly can be important. It's also a way to verify things for dead reckoning so that I know where I should be, all right? And I can figure that out where I should be before I get there. So if I look at my map and I plot a route and I measure it with my measurement system, knowing that 1 centimeter is 100 meters, and I measure between points, and I have X amount of meters, let's just say 800 meters to walk on that leg. 800 meters is gonna be 8 of these beads down, right? That's where I'm gonna be when I get to 800 meter mark. If it's 825 meters, then it's a little bit different. Then I'm gonna have to extrapolate the paces. That's where this thing can come in, because it can tell you that information very, very quickly in small scale. Like I said, it doesn't need to be any bigger than this, okay? And it will do the same thing. This one's just larger. The other thing that this does for you that pace speeds won't do for you is if you are trying to translate things, like you've kept track of a leg that you walked in paces while you're exploring a map. You didn't have an intended target. You were exploring a map on azimuth and you kept track of paces. Then you may want to convert that to meters later to place it on the map so that you have something like a trail that you followed that wasn't on the map, and you can now put it on the map by keeping track of those distances and paces and converting them to meters. So in very simplistic terms, if I take this C scale and I consider that my count, and the D scale my distance, And that's really not what they're meant for, but it makes it easy. And I take this side of the C scale at the 1, and I put it on 62 here on the device. Then it's going to tell me on this side, under my distance, that my count is 1.62 meters. I gotta get this lined up right, 62. 1.62 meters is how far I walk per pace. Now, I'm just gonna remember that 1.62, right? And I'll just probably round it to 1.6. So now, if my count is 1.6, and that's one pace, then I'm showing a distance of 1.6 meters per one pace, and I can extrapolate that data all the way down. So if I walk 300 meters, it's counted as 187 steps. If I walk 400 meters, it's 250 steps. Now I can break that down a lot smaller than just a 62 paces per 100 meters. And again, I can carry to something this big. So I can have all of these tools that I need. I can even store this inside this if I need to, just to make things real easy. And I've got this, and I've got my map, and I've got my compass, and I've got my slide rule, my lat long, and I've got my compass here, and I've got my pace speeds here. And this package is all I need to everything I need to do in navigation. All right, guys, I wanted to get that video up for you today after this class was over. I do have another event coming up this weekend I have to leave for on Thursday morning, so I've only really got the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll try to get a couple videos up in the meantime, but I also have to pack for that event, spend some time with family, and relax as well. So I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for family, for our business. Follow our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And remember to check out selfrelianceoutfitters.com and the Pathfinder School training schedule under the training tab at selfrelianceoutfitters.com and join us for a class in 2025 or 2026. Thanks, guys.